TorahAnytime.com.
Pasuk says by the Parsha of Sodom, when the Rebbe was destroying the city of Sodom, so the Pasuk says, "Vayashkem Avram ba'boiker el ha'mokim asher omad sham es pnei Hashem." Avram Avinu got up in the morning. Chazal, according to Taisus and Chulin, and the Tzedakah on Beis, this Pasuk is the Makar that a Talmud Chacham is not allowed to go out alone at night. And so it says, "Vayashkim Avram ba'boiker." Avram got up in the morning to daven for Sodom. Taisus asks over there, Avram Avinu couldn't go out alone, but he wants to daven for Sodom. So then why didn't he take Eliezer and Yishmael like he took them to the Akedah? It wouldn't have been a Tam Chacham Hailech Yichidi. When you're going with other people, you could go out at night. And he could go wherever he was going to daven. Why didn't he take his Eliezer and Yishmael and go and daven for them at night? Why did he wait until the morning to daven for Sodom? So Taisha says over there, because he didn't want, Taisha says, he says, Avram Avinu says he didn't want anybody to come with him while he was davening. And so Sherbach says he doesn't understand. What's the pshat? What's the pshat in Taisus? He's waiting a whole night to daven for Sodom, but he won't go out with other people because he wants to daven himself. And Tzedakah, he says, the Satmar rebbe asked, he doesn't understand. Why couldn't he daven at home? He probably had some Beis Medrash in his home. Couldn't daven in his house. He had to go outside. And therefore, because of that, wait until the morning? So Sherbach said he heard over from the Satmar rebbe that Avram Avinu, Avadi, was diametrically opposed to Sodom. Sodom were mamish anoshim rishoyim gemurim, and he had nothing to do with them. He knew that if he would daven for them, and he would have Eliezer, and he would have Yishmael, or he would daven in his house, and they would see that he's davening for Sodom, it would be mashpia on them and give them maybe they're not as bad. Look, he's davening for them. They're not as terrible. And maybe because of that, they would have episashtikol shayches with Sodom. And Avram Avinu wasn't willing to do that. But on the other hand, as much as Avram Avinu felt that he was mamish the opposite of Sodom, but he felt when it comes to Gemilas Chasadim, and it comes to helping another person, this is Amchei Sodom. Avram Avinu felt that he has to be mispal for them. There's no boundaries. This is with the destruction of Sodom. But the Satmar rebbe was no doiresh and no mekayim. It didn't matter to him when it came to Mili de Chesed, Mili de Tzedakah. It didn't matter to him how different people were, how opposite ashkafis he had with them. Maybe Take, in public you have to be very strong against them so that no one learns anything from them. No one has a shaykhis to them, bichlal. But seif kol seif, when it comes to doing tzedakah, when it comes to doing chesed, when a person is a yid who's suffering, a yid that's broken, that needs help, he's a nitzruch, there's no boundaries. There's no colors. There's no yarmulkes. Everything's all the same. And this is l'maise true in halacha, Take. But, however, unfortunately, there are a few exceptions of people that Take you can't give tzedakah to. There's when it comes to din of a mummer, somebody who's not shomer Torah mitzvahs, when he goes against the Torah, there's two types of mummer. There's a mummer lahachis, and there's a mummer l'teyavan. A mummer lahachis is somebody that goes against the Torah. He'll have a piece of treifa meat over here and kosher meat, and it's just the same. They're cost the same, it tastes the same, and lahachis, he goes ahead and he eats the treifa meat. That's a mummer lahachis. And somebody who's a mummer lahachis, even if it's only in one aveira, but he's doing it against the ratzon of the Rebbeinu Shloim, so then the halacha is, the Taz brings down that you're not allowed to help him out. You're not allowed to support him. You're not allowed to feed him. You're not allowed to give him tzedakah. However, When it comes to the mummer l'tayovin, somebody who's being mechal mitzvahs, he's going against the Torah, but he's doing it for his own pleasure. It's closer to buy over there. It's cheaper. It maybe tastes better. He has his own cheshbainis, but avad, if will be on the table, two things, a kosher and a treif, avad, he would take the kosher. He has nothing mamish lahachis against the Torah, against the Rebbeinu Shleilim. So in such a case, there seems to be a machlekes in the Poskim, and the Goyin in Siman Reish Nun Aleph, and the Chofetz Chaim is machmir like that as well. He says that there's a halacha is that unless you tackle lahachis, the halacha is that you have a mitzvah to give him tzedakah. Unless, says the Chofetz Chaim in Abbas Chesed, im loy she'einay mamin be'ikrei adas, or shemechal Shabbos b'farhesia. Unless he's not maimin one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim. If he believes in the Rebbeinu Shalom, he believes in Termin HaShamayim, he believes in all the Yud Gimel Ikrim, then the fact that he doesn't do Torah mitzvahs because of L'Teyavin, he says you still have a mitzvah to be mefarnes him, a mitzvah to give him tzedakah. Now that's all if you know whether or not he's a mumar lahachis, you know that he's a mumar l'teyavin. But even somebody who's a mumar l'teyavin and he's just a mechal, he's a chilayni, he's not a from person, it's very hard to know sometimes. He might have a halacha of a tinik shenishba. A tinik shenishba is somebody that grew up without knowing better, and say he's not shemer Torah mitzvahs because he doesn't know much. The Chazon Ish says a loshon of shetzarich ruach hakodesh kedei leidai mutinik shenishba umiu lahachis. Very hard to know just from a person. You think that he's doing it lahachis. No one knows really what's going on inside. No one knows his chinuch. No one understands his background or where he's coming from. Sometimes even they grew up in a frum house and people go off. But it's hard to know where it comes from. And Reb Shlomo Zalman said, he was asked, B'roshel l'teyavin, he says there's a machlekes, we saw that if somebody eats l'teyavin, so we saw that the Goyin, but others say that you cannot support him. The Goyin says you could, and even if it's a suffix, the price can bring down that you could. But he says, Rosh Chodesh machlekes, B'roshel hachis, says Reb Shlomo Zalman, it's also to support him, also to give him tzedakah. Aval hayayim, he says, Rubam hinam ketinoikes shenishbu. V'tzrichim, says Reb Shlomo Zalman, Los Islam, Kadei Shloi La'oyer Kas V'Sina L'Shemer Torah. See, if somebody today comes, Reb Shlomo Zalman says he paskins that if he's a good chance that he's a Tinik Shenishba, he says you have a mitzvah to give him and to support him and to help him. The Chazon Ish, the Sternbach brings down in Chelik Dalit, in Tshuva Tov Samach Zayin, he brings down from the Chazon Ish, and he says that even if Meikra Adin, this person is somebody who's a mummer and you're not mechuyev to give him, maybe he's a mummer, he's not a mummer lachs, but he's a mummer l'teyavin, and maybe there's shittas that say you don't have to support him, but he says that today there's a svara acheres that you have to give him tzedakah. Shariyeshlem bonim ktanim, he says sometimes they have children in their house. If he's collecting for himself, then taka maybe there's shittas not. He says yeshlem bonim ktanim. The imheim chatu. If this person is an abalavera, b'neiam achatu, what did his children do averis? And therefore, he says, Reb Shemuel says, Shamati alocha lemaisa from the Chazon Ish, shetzarich losis lahem tzedakah mitam zeh. He says if it's mumar lahachis, he says then already goes through a cheshbon. He says mumar lahachis, then even though the children, he says then you're not mechuyev to help them out. Lemaisa is, it comes out from Reb Shlomo Zalman, it seems like, and from the Chazon Ish, that there's an Indian to give somebody who's a mumar l'teyavin. He says, but l'maisa is, he brings down in Sefer Oirach Tzedakah, Chaim Kanievsky brings down, and they asked him a shaila. Kaptzonim, people are collecting on mistoivim be'ir, they go around from door to door. Shechazusam, their look, moichiach aleim she'enam shaymer Torah mitzvahs. You look at them and they don't look like they're from a people. They don't look. Hayim shayich ba mitzvah tzedakah. You have to give this mitzvah tzedakah, and he says, in einam shaymer Torah mitzvahs, yitachin she'en chayavam litin lam. He says it could be that you don't have to give them. He doesn't say maybe they're tinik shenishba. He says of mikabetz the davis shechezusay moichiach olav she'ena mishtamish bekesef lemataris Torah. He says sometimes you see a guy and just your feeling tells you that he's not using the money, Pasha, just to keep himself, buy himself food. He's probably using it for not good, not kosher things. He says, are you allowed to tell him that I don't have anymore, even though you have? And what you really mean is, I don't have what to give you, and his tshuva is that it's mutter. You're allowed to tell him that. So, I don't know, Chaim Kanievsky seems to take more of a sense that maybe you're not mechuyev, but Maisa is, it seems that the Chazon Ish and Rav Shlomo Zalman seem to bring down that if a person, unless he's a mumar lahachis, and it's very hard to know if he's a mumar lahachis, if he's a mumar l'teyavin, or if he's a tinik shenishba, there's an inyan to give him tzedakah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.